right, everybody. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you for a walk through the maple cabin and kind of take a walk around the inside as well as the outside, kind of show you what we know and what we think it can be. So the first place we're going to go is into the spring house, which is what we think is the original place where the gentleman who built that cabin as well as that cabin, he made maple syrup. We're going to go inside here. I'm going to show you it a little bit and kind of show you where we are. If you look down here, this is the spring. It's about 3 foot deep from what we can tell. We've never tried to empty it out, so we don't know that if it's constantly fed or if it's something that in the summertime it would dry up with the rest of the area. Like I said in the previous video, I don't know if it's a fissure spring or if it's a spring that is actually a spring that's coming out of the ground. It is stone. It appears to be made of stone that was found around the property here, because many of our chimneys are made exactly of the same stone. But if you look over here, the brick portion, it was done a little bit, it was done after the fact. Here you can see we have some shelving across the top here, as well as some sort of a place in order to store things here. A bottle of what we think is hooch. We opened it up. It's got a very strong alcohol smell to it, but we have yet to be brave enough in order to take a drink out of that thing. It's got a lot of sediment in it, and we may try it someday, but we would need to run it through a cheesecloth or something in order to get the silt out of it. But over here, you can see that there was also a place where there is a chimney pipe there, as well as a place where you can store wood. So this is the spring house. So actually what I think the spring house could be is, I think it would be a good place in order to keep things like gas bottles. We might even be able to use the water out of the spring if we have the ability to pump it up out of there, since there is no water currently to our cabin. Yeah, we'll see. I think it could be a storage shed. We'll close it in, put some new beams underneath there in order to hold the concrete slab up, and get it to a point where it's completely airtight, or not airtight but watertight, and we can use it for kind of like a utility room, as well as a place to store some things that we don't necessarily need on a constant basis here at the cabin. So this old bench was left here by the previous owners as well. I don't know the history behind it, if there's anything at all that's historical behind it, but it's pretty cool. We may put some new boards on it and keep it as something that we would use here on the property. There is a set of steps here that goes up to the second level. And you can see the back side of the maple cabin. You got the chimney up there. It is all log structure. From what we hear from the neighbors, all of these logs did come off of the property. Now, it wasn't properly sealed up and everything, and we did have some problems with water around the base of the cabin, and many of the bottom logs have been rotting. You can kind of see a little bit of it here where they have basically rotted out, and that's the same thing that happened there. So what we did is we propped up the logs, we cut it open, and or cut the log out, and I replaced it with base framing, or structural framing, similar to what you would use in a house to hold up the cabin. Additionally, so we'll run that the whole way out here. We ran out of time last fall, and but I'm gonna bring that the whole way around here, and I'm gonna show you another corner of the cabin where the same thing has happened. But the idea is that we will face it with probably some sort of a masonry, so that it looks like the cabin is sitting on a stone foundation, and it'll continue to look have a very natural look to it. Now, as you can see, most of the eaves are open. That's something that we're looking at putting in some soffit. You'll continue to see that up through there. Most of the eaves are open, and we are going to put softening up there. It's got board and batten up on top, which makes it look really nice, along with the log cabin. But if you look here, you can see up there on the chimney, when the gentleman built it, there is a bird, about a quarter of the way down from the top. Additionally, there's another little triangular stone piece there in the middle. You can almost find a shape out of that, or a face out of that, which is really cool. And one of the things that really kind of turned us on to this property is some of the unique things about it. So this is the back side of it, away from the road. The entire cabin is built on a concrete slab. From what we know, it was built back in the 90s. It's not an old timber frame cabin, or not timber frame, but a log cabin. It is something that is fairly new. All right, so as we come around to the front side, I can kind of show you that other quarter where we had, I found the first issues with the water. This entire corner needed to be replaced, and I'll show you some pictures. I'll try and include them in the video as well, of what it looked like prior. This log that ran from that brick wall there on the spring house the whole way over to this corner was completely gone. It had completely deteriorated and rotted out. So what happened here was this particular set of steps was what they used in order to get up onto what there was their little patio area, which we may use for the similar thing. But as you can see, it's not a traditional stringer type step. It's built out of like just 2x, which are at 90-degree angles. So what happened was, when this was sitting up against the cabin, leaves and snow and a lot of other things would get set down inside behind there, and they would just sit there and they would stay wet. There's no sun that ever really hits this side of the cabin, and it never dried out, and it constantly was working on that wood, or that log that was there, and completely rotted it out. So this is an example of part of that log that came out of there. You know, this is one of the better sides, but you can see there's some rot there as well. But this is the log that came out of there, and that came around the whole way around the corner, because the log that came around the corner was also a little bit rotted out. The gentleman also built the door that's there. It's not, you can see that there's no headers in above the door in order to hold the framing up upstairs. It's the same thing across on the other side where the window is. So that's something that I have planned to do. I'm actually hoping to be able to take this particular door, which the gentleman built, and put a window into it, as well as turn it into a more traditional traditional door. It's just kind of holding, or it's kind of at this point just keeping the critters out. So I'm trying to get it a little bit more airtight so we can keep the air inside. So cabin came complete with a corncob pipe, which is pretty cool. And then we'll take a walk inside. So I did stay here for the first time last night, overnight in the cabin itself. So this is the interior of the cabin. It's not very big. The cabin itself is about 14 by 14. It's not big at all. But this is the area that we intend to use as a kitchen. You can see up here, there's some board there. This entire area had been covered up by a wall. I'll post a picture along with this, or I'll include it in the video here, as to what it looked like previously, but I wanted it opened up, and it really made a huge difference when I was able to do that. So my intent is that this small area here underneath the steps and around this corner will be the kitchen area for the cabin. There's the door from the backside, which again looks really cool. Over here again is the corner. Oop, knocking things down. But this is the old cook stove that the gentleman used in order to make his maple syrup. It is basically a masonry stove. It does not put off a lot of heat. It doesn't do a very good job of heating up the cabin. It's currently 14 degrees in here. Well, not in here, but outside, but it's 59 degrees in here. Most of that is because of this. Last night I had a pretty large fire going in there trying to get the place to warm up, and it just would not warm up because it's just not putting off enough heat. So that's going to come out, unfortunately. I think it's really cool, but it is not something that's going to work for us moving forward. We do have another stove planned, which was my wife's grandparents, and that's going to make its way into the cabin here hopefully next year. Electric here in the cabin is basically just a 15 amp line that is run over from the main cabin that comes in, and it's got a couple of things run off of it. There's 3 outlets and 2 lights. We'll take you for a quick walk up the steps. This area up here is about 10 by 14. The entire cabin itself is right around 300 square feet, maybe 320. It's not very big at all. As you can see here, there's not much up here other than some framing. There is a mattress up here, which is where I did sleep last night. It's much warmer up here than it is downstairs because of the heat rising, obviously. But the ceilings are very low. They're right at 6 feet, which is right where my head is, which is where this is. But it is, I'm looking to make them a little higher, and this will be turned into what we consider our sleeping area. So we think we can get our queen or king bed over here. It'll be tight, but we'll get it in here. And then over here, we'll be able to put a couple of single bunks that I will build in order for the kids to stay in there. So I think it's going to be pretty cool. It's not going to be huge, obviously. It'll just be a sleeping area, but it'll be somewhere for us to be warm in the wintertime when we come up here. All right, guys, so that is the maple cabin. Again, it's not a very big place, but it's a place that we hopefully will be able to turn into a cabin that we can use for years to come, something that'll be fun to be in, some place for us to come up, get out, away from everything, have some creature comforts, and enjoy the time that we spend up here. So any thoughts, any questions, any concerns, feel free to put them down in the comments. If you like what we have and you want to see us as we transform this thing into what we want, feel free to subscribe. And if you like this video in particular, make sure you smash that thumbs up. Thanks.